Hello, Claire. How's it going? Thank you so much for joining me here for the Empathic Leadership Summit. I am over the moon that you're here. I think we're going to learn so much from you. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your background?
Yes, so thank you for having me. I'm Claire Thomas and I am based in the UK. And I'm originally a children's nurse, but moved
Ah,
into becoming a nutritional therapist. I actually left the NHS before COVID, thankfully.
wow.
Um, Retrained for 3 years and then launched my business 2 years ago. So I'm a nutritional therapist, NLP practitioner, and phlebotomist. And I empower ambitious individuals to overcome exhaustion, increase their energy levels, enhance resilience, and achieve their dreams.
Oh my God, amazing. And so badly needed for us empathic, sensitive types. Amazing. So the phlebotomist, is that drawing blood? Am I correct in
It,
saying that? Just
it
to
is, yes.
educate
So,
us?
so I found that I was sending a lot of my clients to the GP,
Right.
and just to cut out the middleman, I was like, I'm a nurse, I'll do this myself.
Okay.
So
Right.
I
Fantastic.
do private blood testing. So yeah.
Right, amazing. Okay, so tell me, before we dive into all of your wisdom now that you're going to share, what has your experience been with empathic leadership over your own career or lack thereof, perhaps?
It's a really interesting question. I think in the NHS, so I was in the NHS for close to 20 years,
Right.
and it was a complete and utter mixed bag. You would think that, we're all caring professionals. It's not always the case.
Mm,
And not everybody who's in a leadership role has perhaps kind of, uh, they've just been promoted. And so they don't always have the skill set. So it has been, I've had some people, especially when I developed chronic fatigue syndrome, that was quite stressful. I definitely didn't feel that I had support from my manager. However, I've had some fantastic boss in one of my last jobs in the NHS. I had someone who really saw me as an individual and was able to meet me, but also because I think at that point, chronic fatigue was a part of my life. Thankfully it no longer is, but she was able to kind of meet me where I was at
mm.
and help me sort of protect my energy. Did I get it right all the time? No, but that was a real blessing because it really showed me what leadership could look like. And so I've sort of taken a lot of what she taught me when I became a manager myself,
Okay.
and still use some of those skills now. So yeah.
Okay, that's amazing. Actually, I just like the point there that, you felt seen. And I think
Yeah.
that's come up a few times in some of the other conversations that like just that connection and transparency so that you're kind of like, here I am, this is what's going on. Like, and I actually have worked with several nurses over the years or people in healthcare who are completely burnt out. It's very common, isn't it?
Very common, and we're seeing more and more of it post COVID as well.
Okay.
I think people just got to breaking point, and the
Mm,
thing that I found in the NHS, it was you give, you give, you give, and that was what you were supposed to do. You were supposed to keep giving. But what happens when your tank is empty
mm,
because you're not getting it back, or the situation is such that you just expected to give? And I think when you are, empathic, highly sensitive, you don't have the same capacity to keep giving without kind of, if you think of burnout as a rubber band, or stress is a rubber band, and your stress system bounces backwards and forwards.
mm.
But if you're constantly pulling it, you don't bounce back. At some point, that elastic band breaks, and that's
Mm.
what we're seeing more and more of.
Yeah, it's the classic kind of polyvagal theory, isn't it? Where you're pushing and pushing and pushing, you're no longer near thriving, you're
Yeah.
just about surviving, and at some point, shutdown has to happen. I've seen it so many times, and I think it's a really important point you've made that HSPs will reach that peak sooner. So if you are empathic, more self-compassion is required. Isn't that right?
Definitely, yes,
Yeah.
I'd say so.
Fantastic. Okay, so tell us, how can nutrition and kind of lifestyle practices support emotional and physical health, particularly for empaths, highly sensitives, maybe all the people watching?
Yeah. So the kind of one thing that I start with, and this is something I've seen massively in my own life, is balanced eating and managing the blood sugar roller coaster. I don't know
Mm.
if you've come across the blood sugar roller coaster where,
I
you know,
have, of course,
yeah,
torture.
3 o'clock. you've slumped, you're like, where's the coffee, where's the cake,
Yeah.
etc. And I saw this in my own career. I was falling asleep. Obviously I never fell asleep at the wheel, but you know, struggling to stay awake as I was driving. And actually when I went back to uni and I learned about the principles of blood sugar balance and put it into place, I found my energy levels were massively impacted. So this involves sort of, if you think of your plate and making sure you've got complex carbs, protein and healthy fats, because they all break down at a slightly slower rate. So if you, for example, were to eat your meal deal from any supermarket, do choose, and you have your sandwich and your crisps and your bottle of pop, that will break down a lot quicker than, say, a chicken salad with quinoa, you know, maybe some sweet potato, olives, you know, lots of veggies. That will break down a lot slower. And so what it means is when things break down too quickly is that you get the rise in blood sugars, and it goes higher than your body likes. You get too much insulin produced, and then that forces the sugar into the cells where, you know, where we to use as energy, and then we get that crash. Even things like a bowl of porridge. A lot of clients come to me, I eat porridge. Porridge is the best thing. And I'm like, it isn't for everyone. Some
I
like,
agree with that. Like, yeah, you know, like I've tried the overnight oats.
yeah.
You know, I've tried all of those things, and it may work for a day, but then it doesn't. And people, you know, I'll say, I feel quite hungry after porridge, and people go, what are you
That's it.
talking about? You know, but I don't know, maybe because I have a highly sensitive system, then my reaction to the porridge is going to be different. I don't know. Do people respond differently, obviously?
People do respond differently. Part of that is the gut microbiome and what's happening with
Okay.
that. Or you could just be more sensitive to the blood sugar crashes.
Yeah.
Some people do feel it more. I know myself, I can't eat porridge, so I tend to have, unless I put loads of nuts or yogurt, flaxseed, that sort of stuff in it. So I tend to have a savory breakfast, you know, eggs, veggies, maybe some quinoa bread or things like that. So
Yeah,
it's all about, you know, and even your snacks, making sure you've always got protein. So I like to say dress your carbs.
yeah.
So making sure that you've got some protein with your snacks. So apple slices with peanut butter, some maybe cheese, and a piece of fruit or a handful of nuts and some dark chocolate, you know, those sorts of things.
So are those the kind of foods that kind of calm the nervous system, or is that protein? Is that what calms the nervous system, or is there
So
specific?
there are specific nutrients that calm the nervous system, but I guess
Okay.
if we look at blood sugar balance in what's happening in the nervous system, the blood sugar roller coaster actually impacts adrenaline and cortisol levels. So
Right.
that will impact the nervous system. So that's where, you know, you do get the cortisol spikes when you have got the roller coaster. So therefore you are going to be more on edge, hangry. You know, I used to get so hangry.
Right.
My
Yeah.
husband would be like, I need to feed her.
Yeah.
And that does make you more stressed out.
Yeah.
Whereas actually when you've got the balance in, so there's a couple of things there with that. So the balance is obviously going to support the reduction in cortisol spikes because you're more balanced. But
Right.
also if you're putting in more nutrient dense food, so you know, more leafy green veg, nuts, seeds, legumes, you're then getting a bigger nutrient density. And, you know, things like magnesium, B vitamins, which are really useful, and as omega-3s are really useful for the calming of the nervous system. You're going to be eating more of that. So magnesium is probably the buzz one that you hear a lot
Yeah.
about
Oh,
when it
yeah.
comes to
Yeah.
calming.
Lifesaver for me.
Yeah,
Lifesaver.
completely. I
Yeah.
take it most days. Um, but things like B vitamins are also really useful. But if we're getting diversity, because we've also got to think about neurotransmitter production. So, you know, serotonin, GABA, dopamine.
Yeah.
And what we tend to find in HSPs that serotonin and dopamine may be lower. Obviously, I can't say for sure.
Yeah.
And then GABA is a calming neurotransmitter. So if you think about if you're already quite, you know, heightened, you kind of almost need a bit more GABA to calm everything down.
Yes, indeed.
So this is where, so if we look at serotonin, about 90% is made in the gut. So making sure your gut microbiome, so fiber, probiotics, chewing slowly, you know, all these, reducing stress, because when we're stressed, the digestion slows right down. Okay. Things like complex carbs and tofu and turkey, for example, are good sources of serotonin.
Okay.
Then with GABA, you've got magnesium, which is a really good one to help with that, as well as things like yoga, breathing exercises. You know, if you look at your lifestyle, those calming exercises on the body. And then dopamine, good sources are like bananas, avocado, lean protein, and being creative. You know, not just the doom scrolling. I always think if I'm stuck doing doom scrolling, or a client says to me, "Oh, I'm just doom scrolling," I'm like, "Okay, right. What else can we be doing? Can we go for a walk?"
100%.
Getting outside, moving your body is so valuable, especially getting out into nature is so valuable. Also at calming the nervous system as well.
Absolutely. I find with clients who are really overwhelmed, you know, and can't seem to find that rhythm, that optimal energy flow in their lives. And I've been there myself, and I still fall into it. You know, the first thing I'll say to them is, where's your phone at night?
Yes.
Before you're going to bed, what are you doing with your phone? Is it in your bedroom? They'd be like, yeah, scroll. It's like, get it out of your bedroom. And like, I say that as if I'm some saint who never does it. Like, I do, you know what I mean? But you have to be like, the difference is unbelievable when you just give your system a chance.
So massive. Like our phones are downstairs or out the bedroom.
Well done.
Because I have seen, like, so, you know, when we go on holiday and they're next to me, I actually don't sleep as well.
Yeah, you can feel it actually.
Just disrupts things. And so I'm so more aware. And I think when you are highly sensitive, you are more aware of those external forces as well, you know, with the phone and things like that. So yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think when you were talking about the specific foods, it's so interesting, isn't it? The brain gut connection. I suppose it's all about that these days, isn't it? But it's so true. And then I find that it's all, you know, for women especially at different points of the cycle, things are different. Things, I mean, I know that the 4 weeks for my cycle are very different, and I try to respect that, you know, and nourish that. Do you have any tips on that?
Yeah, I mean, tracking, I mean, I'm not going to say it's a given, not everyone does track, but if you've got an understanding of when obviously your period starts right through to when you're ovulating to when your period obviously then comes again. And especially towards the later half after like ovulation, we tend to find that obviously progesterone production is higher, and that tends to need a bit more glucose. So then we might find that's when we start craving more, you know, carbohydrate, you know, your bread, your crisps. But things like dark chocolate, magnesium is a really good one at that point. But also from a practical point of view, you tend to not have as much energy. Like I know I don't, especially in the days leading up to, I can crash.
For
And I
sure,
have to remind myself and go, okay, what's happening in my cycle? Oh, right. Okay, this is a normal, my body is preparing. So I haven't quite got there, but if we're really like in tune, it's going, okay, I know I'm probably going to crash 2 or 3 days before. So making sure that it's not a heavy meeting day. Can you sort of block out time in your diary? You know, I have a online calendar, so I have to make sure I block out time that goes, I just put admin. It doesn't matter if I don't do admin, but I've blocked it out so
not as extroverted.
Yes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like that, I love the kind of the seasonal, you know, the winter, spring, summer, autumn. That's helped me a lot. And kind of accepting that the energy of that week and kind of saying, you know, that's okay. I'm human. This is how the what's it called? The infradian rhythm works for females.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so for both our male and female attendees and our audience, do you think that this level of energy, this whether we nourish ourselves or not, is impactful to empathic leadership?
I'd say so. You know, I've seen it in myself, in my clients. If you don't have the energy to be able to turn up in the way you want, perhaps, you know, you're slumped, you don't focus properly, You don't, and you sort of go into survival mode. And I think when we go into survival mode, it becomes very hard to recognize the needs of others.
Yes.
And and if we're especially in a, like my profession, or, very giving profession, and we're constantly giving out, all that happens is we get more and more and more depleted. And that's when we sort of enter into the realms of burnout.
Mm.
And then what happens is, if you aren't nourishing yourself and putting all these things into practice, you just get more and more and more depleted. And I think that is the thing, is where it starts to show up, because you become cranky. You start shouting at your partner or your kids. You
Mm.
might even like not be able to cope with, I had a client recently said to me that she had an email, and because she's so stressed, she completely shut down after an email. And you might find that that starts to happen, that you can't cope with communication. You shut down more. You struggle to go to networking events or be on camera if you're someone that has a social media presence.
Mm.
And it's all these little things that start to add up.
I think that,
And I'm
sorry,
sorry.
sorry to interrupt you. No, carry on.
No, I was just going to say, like, when you run a business, especially if you're not able to turn up, it has such a knock on the pipeline. I'm learning a lot about this at the moment.
Oh,
If you
yeah.
can't turn up and have the conversations and deliver the energy for your clients, and yourself, then you do find that business becomes that much harder.
Mm. It's so true. I just think it's so key what you're saying there. Because sometimes people say, oh, reduce the stress in your life and stress management. And I think people jump to this image of like, I'm really stressed. What am I going to do? When in fact, it's the very small little things initially. I can't handle that email at the moment, or, but I think when you bring the self-knowledge on board, for your own rhythm, you can recognize, well, I can't handle that email right now because
Yeah.
I'm depleted, versus because I'm just not in the zone, or whatever it might be. But it's these small little things that add up that maybe people don't recognize as stress. Do you find that?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's happening more and more. And, when I highlight it, clients are like, oh, really? So I had someone the other week come to me and say, I get to the end of the day, they used to love going out, walking and running and being really creative. And they're like, I've stopped doing that. I don't want to cook because I just can't be bothered. I just watch TV all the time.
Mm.
And I'm like, do you think you're in burnout? And I think these things, we think as burnout, like you say, or lots of stress, and we think, oh yes, I'm really stressed. But it is all the little things that start to add up. You stop wanting to socialize, or you stop wanting to do your hobbies, or you just want to doom scroll.
Yeah.
And it is at that point that we have to go ask ourselves what's going on.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So let's say you're at that point.
Yes.
What do you do? Like, what do you do on a daily basis in terms of self-care routines and
Yeah.
maybe lifestyle changes if you find yourself in that position?
Okay. So it's a good question. Now, I would say try not to do it all at once.
Okay.
So you've got to pick, what is the best place for you to start. Now, if you are able to seek help, I'd always say go and find somebody that can support you. But I would say nutrition is a good place to start. If you feel that you can't manage 3 balanced meals a day, could you just start with breakfast, for
Mhm.
example? I'd always say sleep as well.
Oh,
Are you
delicious sleep.
prioritizing sleep?
Yeah.
Are you making sure that, like you say, your phone's not in your bedroom? You're having some wind down time. You are getting to bed at a time that is decent for you, and you are getting quality sleep, and you're making that a priority. Are you getting outside? And it doesn't have to be that you have to go for a 5K run. It could be that you just sit outside in the sunshine for 10 minutes in the morning, because that actually helps you sleep better
Mm.
by getting some sunlight first thing in the morning. And you sit there with a cup of tea and you don't have your phone with you.
Right.
Or something I do most mornings is actually I go outside. So I have chickens, and I go and
Okay.
feed them. I take off my shoes and I ground myself, and then I have some quiet time. So I don't have my phone and it's first thing in the morning, but that sort of grounding. And then I'll go and like do some gentle exercise, because I know that is really helpful. But you've got to you've got to be able to see that you're in that place of overwhelm, and then you've got to feel that actually it is worth, because I think we can get into that mode of, oh, it takes too much time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes, but those 10 minutes, half an hour is going to be so much better to your nervous system, because it'll calm it down. You're going to be so much more focused, productive. You're going to have much more energy. So it is worth the investment, but we've got to be able to see that.
Yeah, I think that's the tough turning point, isn't it? That like until you do that for several days, it's hard to see the benefits.
Yes.
So it's that kind of level of trust in nourishing yourself and in cultivating an energy flow that's good for you. That's the part that maybe can be challenging.
And definitely, and I mean, I've not actually mentioned alcohol and caffeine. So also that's another one. If you find yourself becoming quite reliant on a glass of wine at the end of the day, it's become a I need it rather than I'm just enjoying it.
Yeah.
Or you need the coffee or the, lots of cups of tea to get through the day. Again, that's a question of, okay, where's this coping mechanism come from?
Absolutely. And then, of course, for HSPs and empathic people, caffeine can hit a lot stronger. It's a very different experience.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. We have to be very wary of how much we're drinking at what time of the day. Like I don't drink caffeine generally after midday, so
Right.
it can clear out of my system. But I do find if I have a cup of tea and there are some coffees out there, even first thing in the morning, I'm still like feeling a little bit jittery.
Yeah,
Tea time.
absolutely.
So
Like
you just
I actually have gone completely decaf now for a few years. The odd time I might treat myself, which isn't a good way to describe it, but I find that when I have caffeine then after a long time off it, it almost has the opposite effect. I think there's a name on that where I end up kind of sleepy. I end up feeling drained rather than stimulated. And when that happens, I kind of go, wow, it really does affect me very strongly. But I find really lovely decaf coffees and I've got very used to them. I have my decaf here with me. So it's I tell my clients all the time that it's a big move at the time, but it's not a big deal and makes such a difference then on a
It
daily
does.
basis.
It does. And I like to think, what would my future self thank me for?
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. Yeah. What does
And
she want? What does she need?
yeah,
Yeah.
because it's hard in the moment, but if I can think about, okay, what will she need to be able to be her best?
Mm.
And is that giving up caffeine? I think we've got to, like, anything that we have to change or adapt or perhaps stop, we need to not think we're being deprived, but recognize actually this is what she needs, or or he needs.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's I love your nourish to soar I see on the screen there. Like that's what it's all about, isn't it? That it's not, and I think, we were all kind of victims of diet culture for so long that we were like, oh, remove, remove, remove. What do I need to cut out? When in fact now it's a lot about adding in, isn't it?
Yeah.
All those
Yeah.
wonderful nutrients that we've cut out.
I know. It's like, actually, can we concentrate on nutrient density, not calories? And
Mm.
I see a shift, but I do think we need to just really think about diversity and what we're putting into our bodies so that they can thrive. Because
Yeah.
our bodies are very clever. They'll soon tell us what they need.
Oh, indeed, absolutely. And then if we're more sensitive, we're gonna hear it. We're gonna feel that pretty deeply. Absolutely, absolutely. Amazing, Claire. You've taught us so much today, how to nourish our bodies to soar, to thrive. And where can people find out maybe a bit more about your work if they want to contact you?
Yep. So my website is nourishtosoar.co.uk, or I'm also on Instagram under Nourish to Soar and on LinkedIn under Claire Thomas.
Fantastic. We'll have some of those links below this video as well, which is fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thanks for your time and your energy. I've learned a lot. I'm going to go off now and think about just those small things that I can do. I think that's what I'll do.
Definitely. But thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Fantastic, Claire. I'll see you soon again. Take care.
Bye.